Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good afternoon. Welcome to all participants and viewers of this webinar entitled Envisioning Architecture Education for Malaysia. A big topic indeed, and I'm not surprised if it is also a hot topic, especially to the academics and professionals in the fraternity. Before we begin, I would like to invite Brother Dr. Aiman Muhammad Rashid to lead the Dua recitation. To our non-Muslim friends and viewers, you are invited to contemplate in your own customary way. Over to you, Dr. Aiman.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ya Karim, Ya Allah, sesungguhnya kami berhimpun pada hari ini bagi menyatakan kesyukuran di atas kurniaan-Mu yang tidak ternilai. Jadikanlah kami hamba-hamba-Mu yang sentiasa bersyukur sama ada nikmat yang sedikit, lebih-lebih lagi nikmat yang melimpah ruah kepada kami. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, sesungguhnya Engkau Maha mengetahui bahawa kami di sini ingin menimba ilmu-Mu yang sangat luas bagi mengembangkan potensi kami sebagai hamba-Mu yang Engkau redai. Justru berkati dan rahmatilah perhimpunan kami ini. Kurniakanlah kepada kami ilmu-Mu, sinarilah hati-hati kami dengan cahaya dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati serta mengamalkannya. Ya Dzal Jalal wal Ikram. Kurniakanlah jua kepada kami kesihatan anggota, kecerdasan minda, ketenangan jiwa, kekuatan semangat. Semoga dengannya kami mampu mendepani cabaran, berdaya saing dan mampu mengangkat martabat diri, keluarga, masyarakat dan negara. Allahumma ij'al jam'ana hadza jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al lillahumma fiha wa la ma'na wa la man yatba'una syayaqina ولا مطرودة ولا محرومة. اللهم اجعل خير أعمارنا آخره وخير أعمالنا خواتمه وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك فيه. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل فيه قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. صلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Thank you, Dr. Aiman. If you are watching this webinar, please make sure that you click like or even share so that more people could be invited into this webinar. If you care, so please share. I am Syed Iskandar Ariffin, the moderator of this webinar. This webinar is streaming live on two platforms, Webex and FB Live. A limited space of not more than 200 participants are being allocated on Webex. And if you could not join via Webex, please do join us on FB Live. You may post your question on the chat or comment box at Webex and FB Live respectively, and the HSPN 2030 Secretariat based at UTM will monitor and collect them. To those following this live streaming via Webex, if you want to ask the question live, please raise your hand as we will only unmute you once we see your hand. Are you ready? Viewers out there, let us now begin. In the distant past, architecture was learned and taught in the traditional ways, where tradition, i.e. knowledge and skill, are transmitted and handed down from master to disciples of a generation of master craftsmen and artisans. Learning architecture was something formal, something informal, subtle, and to some extent monastic. The first formal architecture education institution is the Bauhaus, a German word for building house, which is a school of design based in Weimar, Germany, operating from 1919 to 1933, founded by Walter Gropius. Since the Industrial Revolution, architecture was largely taught and learned under an informal system of tutelage and atelier. In England, in 1958, Sir Leslie Martin of RIBA Education Committee brought together professional and academic members and made a momentous decision to run architecture education at the university. This gathering is referred to as the First Oxford Conference. Much of what we have in architecture education today are largely influenced by the Bauhaus system of pedagogy and the decision on curricula made during the First Oxford Conference. In Malaysia, a formal architecture education was introduced by the British administration through the setting up of the Technical College in Kuala Lumpur, known as KL Tech College. In 1956, Julius Posner was brought in from England and appointed the head of department. It was during his time a program called Diploma in Building Design was introduced. By 1960, this diploma program was deemed recognized by the RIBA as being equivalent to RIBA intermediate examination. This Department of Architecture, led by Julius Posner, who was the alumni of Bauhaus, was the embryo that led to the formation of the School of Architecture at University of Technology Malaysia. Subsequent to the historic development, we also saw the emergence of another two schools of architecture, namely Institute of Technology Mara, ITM, or now known as University of Technology Mara, and University of Science Malaysia. From early 1970s up to late 1990s, that is almost 30 years, the three schools of architecture have been shouldering the responsibility to produce architectural graduates who then become the nation's future architects. Without dwelling too much on the history, let me fast forward. As of now, in this year of 2020, we have 10 universities offering program of architecture at Bachelor of Science and Master level, equivalent with LAM Part 1 and LAM Part 2, qualifying professional examination. We also have another 8 universities offering Bachelor of Science degree, equivalent to LAM Part 1. In total, we have 18 architectural education providers. In 2010, Ministry of Higher Education granted the Council of Heads of Architecture School, in short COHAS, with a research grant to deliver a document titled Halatuju Pendidikan Senibina Malaysia, covering a period of 10 years from 2010 to 2020. Now that 2020 is about to leave us behind, Ministry of Higher Education has been very kind in granting us once again a special grant to COHAS to conduct a research of the same nature and to produce a strategic document that will chart architecture education for this nation for another 10 years until 2030. Referred from now on as Halatuju Pendidikan Senibina Negara 2020, or in short, we shall refer this document as HPSN 2030. Lembaga Architect Malaysia, in collaboration with MoHE, Ministry of Higher Education, is the joint patron of HPSN 2030. Alongside MoHE, LAM has been kind to partly fund the research. Together with COHAS, Malaysia, Majlis Akreditasi dan Pendidikan Senibina Malaysia, or known as MAPS Malaysia, the council set up under the auspices of LAM to monitor the implementation, promotion and advancement of architecture education in Malaysia, form part of the research team. So the HPSN 2020 is the reason for us to be here today in this webinar. It is the future that we are about to discuss, the future of architecture education in this country. This webinar will go down the history as a special moment in architecture education in this country. The views and points that we are likely to gather from our panelists, persons of prominent figure in the industry and the academia, as well as from the viewers through the question and answer session shall be noted by the research team. To grace the opening of this webinar, I am pleased to invite the President of Lembaga Architect Malaysia, Architect Zairul Azidin bin Badri, to deliver his welcoming speech. Over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Professor Dr. Syed Ahmad Iskandar, Syed Ariffin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. Land-back board members, chairman and members of Council Accreditation Architecture Education Malaysia or MAPS, distinguished speakers and participants of today's webinar. I would like to welcome all to this special event this afternoon, together with the expert to establish the new policy and framework for the National Architectural Education 2030, or known as HPSN 2030. I am equally excited to be with you today, as this is a kick start to an important event to determine the future of architectural education in Malaysia with the theme Envisioning Architecture Education for Malaysia. I'm glad to inform that we are able to gather very important people in the industry today, more specifically experts in their own field in architectural education policy, and experienced practitioner and academician who have been diligently supporting us since the beginning. We extend our warm welcome to Honorable Professor Dato Seri Dr. Muhammad Mustafa Ishak, none other Director General of Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, Honorable Tan Sri Dato Sri Architect Haji Isa bin Mohamed, immediate past President of International Union of Architects, UIA, LAM President Gold Medalist, Managing Director Architect Jururancang Malaysia, AJM Sdn Bhd, and last and not least, Honorable Emeritus Professor Dato Dr. Ellias bin Salleh, Vice Chancellor, Chief Executive, Genovasi University College. Thank you again to the expert, Tan Sri, Dato Sri, and Professor for being with us today. We feel lucky to have presentations containing far vision of education and insight of practitioner experience with some very helpful tips to review the impact of the curriculum on the existing academic program in order to improve the quality of education as well as the graduates in line with the ministry's policy and the current industrial need that each and every one of us can benefit from. On behalf of the organizing committee, I sincerely thank and acknowledge every one of you who extended assistance to us for making this event a reality. I want to thank Adjunct Professor Architect Mustafa Salleh, Chairman of MAPS, Lembaga Architect Malaysia, Associate Professor Architect Dr. Razali, Head of COHAS, Dr. Alice Sabrina, who's heading the research, and the whole team for their commitment for today's event. Lastly, without taking any more of your time, I hope all the participants will benefit from the interesting topic presented to you today, and hope for your active participation by all to tap and pick up all the knowledge and experiences from the speakers today. Thank you all. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. President, Lembaga Architect Malaysia, for the opening remarks. Very short and sweet. Thank you also for your leadership, sir. Allow me to proceed. Without delaying any minutes of our precious time, I shall proceed to the next event of this webinar, that is the keynote speech by the Director General of Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia. But before that, let me cite briefly the background of Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Mustafa bin Ishak. Viewers can also view it on the screen. Dato Sri Professor Dr. Muhammad Mustafa Ishak is a professor of politics and international studies. He is also a former Vice Chancellor of University Utara Malaysia, who has served the University Utara Malaysia from 2010 to 2019. By nature of his qualification and background, he is indeed an expert in Malaysia and Southeast Asian politics, as appears in many platforms and television broadcasting. He's a popular figure, known to many of people, and currently is the Director General of Higher Education, a position that, for me personally, very difficult. So, all the best, Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Mustafa Ishak, and if you are ready on your side, Dato Sri. And now we are going to listen to the keynote speech by the Director General of Department of Higher Education, Professor Dato Sri Dr. Mustafa bin Ishak. Over to you, Dato Sri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected A.R. Zairul Azidin bin Badri, President Lembaga Arkitek Malaysia, Tan Sri Datuk Sri A.R. Haji Isa bin Haji Mohamed, immediate past President of International Union of Architect UIA, Emeritus Professor Dato A.R. Dr. Illias bin Salleh, Chief Executive of Genovasi University College, Professor Dr. Syed Ahmad Iskandar bin Syed Ariffin, Member of the Majlis Akreditasi dan Pendidikan Senibina Malaysia, A.R. Mustafa bin Haji Mohamed Salleh, Chairman of the Majlis Akreditasi dan Pendidikan Senibina Malaysia, A.R. Dr. Razali bin Ariffin, Chairman and Council of Heads of Architecture Schools, Associate Professor Dr. Ellias Sabrina binti Ismail, Head Researcher Halatuju Pendidikan Senibina Negara, HPSN 2030, distinguished expert panels and moderator, academic members of the institutions and practicing architects, participants of the architectural fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good afternoon. First of all, I would like to express gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because with His bounty and permission, we are able to attend this momentous event, the National Webinar on the Halatuju Pendidikan Senibina Negara HPSN 2030. I would also like to express my appreciation and gratitude to the Board of Architecture Malaysia, BOA, the Malaysia Accreditation Architecture Education, MAPSM, and University Technology Malaysia for collaborating with the Ministry of Higher Education, MoHE, to organize this national webinar on Envisioning the Architecture Education 2030. This architecture education plan is crucial and essential for our country to produce qualified professional architects who will work towards the betterment of our built environment in the future. Architectural education is one of the earliest education that has been in existence since the Middle Ages, the 5th century, and began to be globally recognized as an official education in the early 19th century. A comprehensive architectural education combines theoretical and practical knowledge that encompasses a wide range of disciplines, including arts, science, technology, and the humanities. As with other fields of study, the strategy and direction of architectural education for Malaysia must be refined. It is important to outline policies and guidelines to be adopted and implemented as a reference in planning the development of architectural education in the next 5 to 10 years, starting from 2020 onwards. On behalf of Ministry of Higher Education, I believe that it is of paramount importance that the strategies and direction are in tandem with the Malaysian Education Blueprint 2015-2025 for higher education and in full support of the fourth industrial revolution. The contribution of the country's higher education sector must meet current demands, We must develop human capital with a first-class mindset and empower our institutions to enhance knowledge and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia is working towards establishing ourselves as a higher education international hub. MoHE has been championing for a change from academia operating in isolation to establishing collaborative relationships with the industry, government, and local communities. We call this synergistic collaboration the quadruple helix concept. The collaboration coupled with data and devices will give the fourth industrial revolution an exponential leap in the next 5 years. The digital transformation will demand unparalleled scale of connectivity, ability to compute, store and process massive scale of data in real time. Higher education institutions will continue to function as a source of innovation, policy, and new knowledge, and they are undeniably a national asset. It is with high hopes that the HPSN strategies and policies will champion a holistic approach to the fourth industrial revolution that helps to address society's environmental and social challenges. Aside from that, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, must also be embedded in the blueprint. We strongly believe that the humanizing element in architecture and society 5.0 must also be seriously considered in the way forward for this field, in particular architecture. I therefore urge each and every one of you to please step forward and help play a part in making this transformation a success. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of strategies depend on the commitment of all relevant parties involved in implementing them. Therefore, I would like to congratulate and thank the Board of Architecture Malaysia (BOA), Malaysia Accreditation Architecture Education (MAPSAM), Council of Heads of Architecture Schools (KOHAS), and University Technology Malaysia for collaborating with MoHE and taking the initiative to produce the National Architecture Education Direction HPSN 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I thank you all very much and I wish you a meaningful webinar. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the Honorable Professor Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Mustafa bin Ishak, Director General of Department of Higher Education. That was indeed a speech with loaded messages, way forward for architecture education. We certainly take note of that. Thank you once again, Dato Sri. From the statistic that I received, this webinar is now followed by over 250 viewers and participants, both from home and abroad. So we hope more to join us in the next few minutes. The next agenda of this webinar is a speech by the expert panel number 1. Let me first introduce the first panel, the Honorable Tan Sri Dato Sri Architect Haji Esa bin Mohamed. I will cite some of the significant achievements of Tan Sri Architect Esa. Meanwhile, viewers may read his brief resume on the screen. Tan Sri Dato Sri Architect Haji Esa is the Managing Director of the architectural and planning firm named Architect Jurumancang Malaysia, Sendirian Berhad, or in short, AJM. He has served Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia as the president from 1993 to 1995. Also have served as chairman of ACASIA, Architects Regional Council of Asia, for 1995 and 1996. The most significant position that he held is becoming the president of the International Union of Architects. And now, as the immediate past president of the UIE. And as far as Malaysia is concerned, that Tan Sri Architect Haji Isa is the first recipient of Land President Medal in 2015. He is a person that need no introduction. I think within the profession, in the fraternity, we know him well. What more could we say about Tan Sri? He's a prominent figure, a man of integrity and internationally renowned. What a privilege for us to have him today. I'm sure Tan Sri is now ready on the other side. How are you, Tan Sri?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. If you are ready, Tan Sri, you may start at any time at your own call.
Okay.
Over to you, Tan Sri.
Thank you very much, Moderator, Dr. Syed, Ahmad, Iskandar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And good afternoon all. All the protocols recognized and observed. I'll just have to go straight because I don't have much time together. I have a few slides that I wanted to share with you. I know my title for the presentation today is supposed to be, from what I read in the poster, International Networking in the Built Environment. I presume this was mooted by the organizer, which I like to thank the organizer for inviting me, OHAS, MAPS, UTM, JPT, and LAM for this. I must say it's a momentous occasion for the practice and particularly in the architecture education. I'm supposed to talk about international networking, but international networking does not come so easily if you're not prepared for it. We are faced, for example, with a lot of challenges, and some of the challenges that we face in practice at the moment are the infiltration of experts from overseas, foreign architects who are well equipped with technologies, finance, support from governments, etc. So I learned this also during my tenure as the International Union of Architects president. And there were a lot of dissatisfaction, particularly amongst the developing nations who are members of the union. Africa, India, what have you, they also have a similar problem. So in the UIA, we have things like the architecture education, UNESCO UIA Architecture Education Validation Council. We also have the Professional Practice Commission, which actually transfers barriers and boundaries, internationally. We want to come up with common standards as to how architects should practice. And for today, within the 30 or so minutes I have, I'd just like to share with you some slides First of all, maybe as an introduction, what is the UNESCO URA Charter for Architecture Education, which is actually was established in 1996, and it was updated while I was actually the president. I was also the chair for the Education Validation Council for UIA. It was updated in 2017. So I have a few slides for that. And then I just like to go to my own experience after about 47 over years of experience on project delivery, and also perhaps share with you the business process of running a practice and the way forward. So I hope I have time to do all this within the limit that we have. So next slide, please. So this is the objective of the architecture education, which is basically, excuse me, to ensure that one is able to create architectural designs and satisfy both aesthetics and technical requirements. Next one is adequate knowledge of the history and theories of architecture and the related arts, technologies, and human sciences, and then followed by a knowledge of the fine arts as an influence on the quality of the architectural design, adequate knowledge of the urban design, planning, and skills involved in planning process, and also understanding the relationship between people and buildings, buildings and the environment, etc., and understanding the profession of architecture itself and the role of architects in society, in particular in preparing briefs and take account of the social factors. Next. And also the understanding of the methods of investigation in the preparation of a brief of a design project, understanding the structural design, construction, and engineering problems as related to the building design that you are designing, adequate knowledge of physical problems and technologies and the functions of buildings as to provide them with internal conditions of comfort, which is very important nowadays when you talk about green building, and protection against climate, and design skills necessary to meet building users' requirements within the constraints imposed by cost factors, environmental practice, and building regulations. Adequate knowledge of the industries, organization, regulations, and procedures involved in translating design concepts into buildings and integrating plans into overall planning. Next. And of course, the awareness of responsibilities towards human, social, cultural, urban, architectural, environment, and as well as heritage. These are important factors. Adequate knowledge of means of achieving ecologically responsible design, environmental conservation and rehabilitation, and the development of a creative competence in building techniques, and understanding the disciplines of the construction methods related to architecture, and adequate knowledge of project financing as well, project management, cost control, and methods of project delivery, which I'm going to talk to you later. Training in research techniques as an inherent part of architectural learning for both the students as well as the teachers. So if we start a practice for you to be recognized and to be a power of an authority in the environment, let's think about, first of all, you must have an idea what is good design. Good design means you can say it might be a creative work of art, right? Every architect likes to think they're going to build iconic buildings, iconic environments. But it's important also the design must be functional and fit for purpose. A place making for people. This is our responsibility. It must be environmentally sensitive. And you must have innovative technologies. This is something very, very challenging because the pace of technological advancements seems to outpace the development of human characters. Now you must be ICT savvy. I'm already quite old, but I'm trying to catch up with ICT. So I have to make sure that staff that we have in the office are also very, very well equipped. And you must come up with design which could be considered world-class, unique, out of this world, by thinking out of the box. So to make sure that your design is something is to be appreciated internationally. And after doing all that, after doing all these fantastic design ideas, you must make sure that it is buildable and it's cost-effective and also profitable for your clients and for the society. Most important, of course, nowadays, right? We have the sustainability goals, which we have to incorporate in our design. And after that, in the implementation, you must know exactly, we can't run away from the fact that we have to understand contracts, how to implement and build the design that you have designed. So these are the challenges. Next slide. Next one. Next one, yes. The challenges in project delivery, who are the players? Sorry, go back to previous one. Yes, yeah. We have ourselves consultant architects. We have amongst us, engineers, quantity surveyors. You all know it. Some of you are in practice. This is what we have. We have other interior designers, landscape designers, or architects, or whatever, and even ICT specialists. Now people talking about big data, artificial intelligence. They might even come into your foray. So you have to manage this because the architect is supposed to be the leader of the team, and you have to understand the regulatory requirements, authority. There's so many of them. I think in practice, there's so many laws and rules and regulations that traverse all kinds of ministries, whether it is housing, local government, or even the Companies Act, and even the environmental acts, what have you. There's so many that we have to understand. We seem to be able to know everything. When people look up to us to be a person who knows everything, who actually is the person who's going to be responsible in restructuring the built environment. And then after doing all that, you go to the site, you have to face, contractors, builders, and they have their own team, right? Part of you managing the consultants team that you have to manage this contractors and their own team, which consists of even planners and your own colleague, architects within them, engineers, what have you. You have to know the quality control procedures. You have to know what's involved in financing and scheduling and logistics. All these are challenges which I think in the university you probably do not have the opportunity or time to look at this. So, but these are realities, right? And not only that, how do you deal with your client? This is also a major challenge. we are at this point in time, everybody knows we are having problem with the pandemic, and we are not getting paid. We are doing work which has been suspended and not getting paid. Some of us are suffering. Quite a lot of us are suffering. So, but when things are going on, you still have to face this group of people, financiers, their bankers, their valuers, and even buyers and tenants, right? Who can lodge complaints. And being in the disciplinary committee, faced so many complaints from buyers and from owners against our fellow architects. So these are challenges. Uh, so next, and of course, while we're doing all this, the targets keep moving. We have to understand on site, the logistic and planning. The contractual issues, programs and scheduling and progress monitoring, maintaining quality control, and what you call sequencing of works. If you're not equipped with all this, you can be given the runaround. You can be overtaken and overwhelmed by the project managers who are going to control and probably tell you what to do. But as a leader of the industry, you must be able to understand all this, which includes site management, how, when, and where the nominated subcontractors and consultants come in. You must make sure that all your drawings and documents are perfect, so that there won't be any disputes and claims which is resulted because of your inaccuracy in producing drawings, inaccuracy in coordinating drawings with other consultants, engineers, what have you. And you must make sure it is all very well coordinated. And sometimes changes in drawings are also a problem when you go to site, and you might be working on something which has been overtaken by events or overtaken by changes. And this is where things get very, very wrong. So site inspection and progress evaluation, all these are the things which is very, very demanding upon the architect, which has to be taken care of. So just very quickly, I don't want to go into detail. Next one. If you divide the work packages, I can just give you a list here. You can read by yourself. These are very, very important. Sometimes we forgot, that these are works which is temporary in nature, but needs to be done, and you have to be able to identify and actually advise your client, your project managers on the requirement, and advise even the contractors, right, on these requirements, whether it is a temporary access, what they call all the other infrastructure works, all these things the architect has to understand. I just want to rush through this so that give more time for you to ask questions later. Next one. Similarly, for civil and structural works, you have to understand the sequencing. There are things like, sometimes I find, in my experience, even looking at some of the complaints I saw in against architects, we tend to think, maybe the engineers are responsible for their work, right? And we are not supposed to do anything, which is wrong. I think the engineers is working as part of your team. Their work, whether it is, on site or giving what they call civil structural drawings, it is still our responsibility as the architect to coordinate. Right? That means you have to understand, understand the buildability, as I mentioned earlier, of your design. So you have to understand where the engineering input is coming from. When it comes to builders work, of course, there are so many things that involve. I just list here some of the items, which is very, very crucial and important that you have to be appraised with. And all these things involves coordination and understanding the sequences of work. And you missed out the sequence, it mean implication on cost. So similarly, next slide, in mechanical services, you might have a district cooling system being built for a township or even a major commercial development. You have to know the sequence of it. You have to allow for the related chill water piping to feed your project, the fire protection system, the air conditioning system. All these things must be within your control and within your understanding. And if you do not encompass all this knowledge, right, then it is very, very difficult for you to have a position of authority as the leader of the industry. And this is what is mentioned earlier in the UNESCO UIA Charter for Architecture Education. It's very encompassing, it's very, very broad, and it is very, very demanding. And especially now, things are getting more and more sophisticated. You cannot just go and wash your hands off after giving the CPC or getting the CCC, because there is the post-contract, post-completion work that you have to be responsible for, which is facilities management, right? Nowadays, handing over a project must be complete with manuals or maintenance, right? And you have to prepare as-built drawings. Most of the time, you think that the contractor is involved, is responsible for the as-built drawings. It is not so. Because the contract depended a lot on your construction drawings to prepare the as-built drawings. So you have to be prepared to make sure that you go back to the site to ensure that the as-built drawings is drawn according to what is there on site. It is very, very disturbing to see that, some of the projects, the architects do not go to the site, but they delegate it to either the clerk of works or the assistants. This is actually quite disturbing. If you're a PSP, you have to know exactly what you have done. So FM is a very, very important aspect nowadays. How much time do I have, Mr. Moderator?
You are okay, Tan Sri. Please proceed.
Okay.
Time is good. You are doing well.
Okay, next. Similarly, when you go to electrical services, I just show you the list of the things that you have to look at. These are the things you have to allow, not just in the drawings itself, even though you have the mechanical engineers and the electrical engineers to be with you. Sometimes they will do drawings, which is most of the time, unfortunately, in this country, I found the electrical drawings or M&E drawings are done as line drawings, schematic, right? It is not actually the actual sizes of whether it is the wires or conduits or what. It just give you a line. And that interpretation of the line could be very, very disturbing. And you find this is what happened on site when the line exploded to a size which is much bigger than the beam, right? You have clashes. So as architects, it is our responsibility to make sure that you can translate those line drawings right? Because you ask the engineer, they won't do it. Right? Most of the time, the practice that we have in this country, we appoint nominated suppliers or subcontractors to prepare shop drawings. And our consultant approved the shop drawings. The shop drawings are not referred to the architectural drawings. So this is where a problem. In most cases also, some government projects, the M&E portion is taken out on the main contract. It is used as a nominated subcontract. And sometimes there's a big gap between what has been the builder's work and what is the M&E works. So the coordination gap is huge. This is why I think we have to make sure that people understand the processes of construction. I'm talking this through my experience over 47 years. And I observe this is what's happening. Right? If we want to be a developed nation, advanced, right, we have to improve not just our mindset, but the manner in which we conduct our business. And this is some of the weaknesses that we find. And it is costly. It's a waste, right? So I think this is something that we have to understand. And as architects, I feel very much it is our responsibility to look at all this lists, whether it is electrical low voltage or high voltage and telecommunication, and CCTV, all these things. It is our responsibility to make sure they are well coordinated and well sequenced in the delivery process. So the same thing now. I mean, I just ran through this very quick. Next item, next slide. This is for your own consumption. You go next slide, please. So because of this, most of the projects, big projects, people opted for integrated project delivery and procurement system, where there's single point responsibility. And unfortunately or fortunately, a single point responsibility, which is most in the form of design and build or turnkey, right? It is in the hands of the contractor. So as architects, you're not able to actually control, because the contractor will tell you what to do in order for them to make sure that the cost is controlled and our time of delivery is also controlled. So this is something which is very rampant at the moment, and it is a favorite way of doing things at the moment. So much so I even ventured into it myself, so that I can have full control of what is being built and what is being designed. So quite a number of projects overseas are also adopting a similar approach. Next, just a continuation of that. Next slide, please. So my second section of my presentation today is I'm sharing with you, this is what we do, what I do in my office. When we adopted the ISO, right, way back in year 2000, we started this. I'm sharing you my business process, is a map. This is basically, if we look at the chart here, right, within the red area is actually your business, right? All the yellow boxes that you see there are the things that fit into our business process, right? And this includes things which is actually outside our purview normally, right? Whether it is outsourcing, training, or auditing, all these things are from outside. But internally, right, is within this red box. This is the process that we go through. In business development, we look at project planning, we look at concept and schematic design. This is our normal work, right? Design development, detailed design, contract implementation and management. This is what is normally in our conditions of engagement anyway, and project completion and post-contract, post-completion. Okay, next slide. So just if I extract out the red portion inside the box, which is the heart of the whole process, business development, project planning, design development, contract management, project completion. And if we go further, next slide, this is the process. We have the metrics here. You've got a client or project directors internally. Excuse me. I haven't been talking for so long, so my throat is a bit of a problem. Dah lama tak bagi presentation. So, then we have project management, you got design, and you got drawing. And then on the left too is the business development, project planning, the metrics. And this is how we go through with the client, right? We have the client management, and we provide project brief, and then we review with our project directors, and then we look at the allocation or assignment of work to a project architect and the project team, and then after that, we will make sure there is already a project architect or head of department for the design to look at the brief. And when you go to project planning, we have to make sure that we got the letter of appointment properly done, right? So then on our project director side, they will look at, the agreement, fees, what have you. While on the design side, things are going on, and then we will coordinate with other consultants and with their preliminary input. The next slide. And we go down further, we have a design development on the left too, and then the concept and schematic design being developed. And this is the process we go through. The project design team will continue on with the design concept. We have a review, and then we present to the client, right? Which is the job of the project directors, and you make contact with the client, and then we coordinate with all the other consultants, and the process went through on until we submit or prepare the drawings for development order, and we proceed on next slide. And here, the design development starts. And when it starts, we go through again, right, with the client confirmation. And so this system is good because this is based on the ISO that we have adopted. And it gives us a certain amount of discipline, and the client understands our work processes. We then assign also to our design team, which include the computer-aided design department, and again, so many design reviews. This design reviews is required as part of our ISO, and before we go into the next step of doing the working drawings, and then having it checked, and then going across to get the drawings endorsed and again approved and signed off by the client. Then we go further, next one, to do the necessary, right? Contract documentation, what have you, and so on, and so on. And then, of course, the actual implementation. Next slide. Okay. Then the, the project completion, of course, you need to do the inspection, the issuing of CPC to contractors, and application of CCC, or some areas we have the CFO, and then determine. Of course, this is quite normal. You all know defect liability period, what have you. So this is a process which we adopted, and also in consonant with our ISO requirement. Now we have developed ISO to ISO 9001 plus. The next slide. This is basically our quality management system structure. I just want to share you with this. This chart here. I'm sharing this, hoping that all of you can also maybe adopt the procedure. It's quite simple, and it has given us actually the discipline and also to make our client understand the requirement, because most of the clients now they do observe ISO. They themselves are ISO certified, so it is easier for us to talk the same wavelength. Next slide. So I just extract some of the process to share with you. Like, for example, this is the concept design procedure. I just share with you. I don't have to go through it here. You can read it in your own sweet time. And because I just have to rush off to make sure that I can meet the target period that we've been assigned to. Next one. So then, next slide, please. So because of this, of late, I found that working in other international bodies, BIM is a very important tool for delivery nowadays. And I think the government has acknowledged that. And I must admit, all this while, although we started to do BIM way early, about 10 years ago, but we didn't actually embark on it. We spent quite a lot of money buying workstations for Revit. And in those days, about 10 years ago. But unfortunately, there were no takers. No takers meaning the industry wasn't ready for it. And even though CIDB and even PAM, for that matter, have started promoting, very few, quite a large number, have not adopted it. And especially among our fellow consultants also. Engineers, they have a different system. So the license that we have in Revit were actually unused for quite some time. Only until recently, last year, that AGM decided, hey, I think we have to embark on this. And I force everybody to embark on this. This is to transform ourselves for the new future. Because I found, I myself, I'm not savvy, but I think it is my responsibility to make sure the practice, and hopefully the practice nationwide will adopt the same. to improve our quality in delivery. So we have embarked about last year, about a year now. It's taken a year. Next slide. We established milestones. We develop our human resources with respect to this. And the BIM facilities, the users, our delivery strategy, program, and also I would like to share with you one project that we have done a few projects under BIM, but I will share with you. So this is very quickly. Next slide. Our target. We are. You see the blue line. The blue line. We have collaborated with BIM consultants on project. Approached BIM trainer. We have hired BIM capable new staff. Right. We have upgraded our office facilities. Established BIM standards for the company and protocol, and conduct program training on weekly basis. And we hope next step will be to set up our BIM R&D department, research, and also develop our own API. So at the moment for AJM, next, we have 11 persons who are BIM literate, and we have 2 coordinators. We have 1 advisor, and we have also at the moment, in terms of BIM and CAD, about 48% at the moment is BIM, and we hope by next year, at least by the 3rd quarter, we completely do away with AutoCAD. So this is our aim. So next slide to give you the facilities that we have in terms of the software and what we hope to do. Next slide. Some of the facilities that we have acquired, and we are now thinking about acquiring more equipment and facilities, including 360 camera drone for site scanning and what have you. Because we had one project that we was supposed to do an as-built, and it was not possible for us because we don't have this equipment. So I think this is something that we are embarking on. So the users, you all might know it, the modeling, visualization, documentation, and I found it's a very, very good, to my own revelation. BIM is a very, very good tool to have for all practices. It is not cheap, unfortunately, but I think it is a requirement. You can do just about anything that you want. So we have developed, these are the next slide. Next slide. Modeling, visualization, documentation. We have one project which is completely, few projects completely under the system. We have developed our own protocol, clash detection, and even facilities management. So it is a very useful tool. Right? Next. So this is the strategy that we are developing. We have a standard template now. We have our own protocol, execution plans. We have our own libraries now, which we are building up more and more. Next. These are the template that we have. Next slide. The template, the protocol, the execution plan, and also the library. So, as I said, next slide. We have in-house training. And very soon, we hope, we have our own Dynamo script development, and also which will enable us to do all kinds of things, and also the API. So this is our plan. In order for us to be competitive, and because we are observing work overseas also, so we have to equip ourselves. Next slide. I just want to share with you, this is a project which is under construction in DCC, building Bukit Bintang Commercial Center. So I think there is supposed to be a 3-minute video. I don't know whether you can click on it to end my presentation. Can you get access to it?
Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. We are working on your video very soon, in a few seconds.
It's on Google Drive.
Yes.
you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Architect Ishak, for sharing the wealth of your experience in the practice. It was indeed an insightful, forward-looking and inspiring speech. The video was fantastic. I certainly like the component parts. Tan Sri, we have a question and answer session.
Yeah, but I have to leave by 4, latest by 4:15. Hang on a minute. Ni kat mana Putrajaya eh? Huh?
We are in Johor Bahru.
No. I got a meeting with the Minister Tokpa pukul 5. I don't know. I think must be Putrajaya, so I have to leave by
Okay.
4 o'clock.
It's already past 4.
Huh? No.
Now it's
It's 3.
quarter past 3.
You got the bus, you don't scare me, please.
So we have already questions online. Somebody raised hand. Can the person who raised the hands voice the question to Tan Sri?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Azari from UTM. So I have a question to Tan Sri, if you may. In your opinion, what do the practice expect from fresh graduates of architecture, particularly in context of BIM lah? Because I believe from your showcase just now, you've shown quite a bit on BIM, but I would like to know what is the industry's or the practice expectation of the fresh graduates, and then also are the schools producing the students according to the expectation of the industry? Thank you.
I think your mic is muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, we can hear
Somebody muted me. I don't know. No, I'm sorry. If I'm not mistaken, you asked me what is the industry's expectation as far as BIM is concerned, right? So I think, some of the projects I've shown you was not done by BIM. It was the normal AutoCAD drawings, and the contractors did that. And we took the initiative to actually convert all those drawings to BIM. And to my delight, I saw how important it is and helpful it is for us to explain to the client, right, the processes that's involved. Because sometimes our clients think that the contractors know better. Yeah? The contractor's system of construction and procedures, I think because they are very experienced, they know better. But unfortunately, in this country, our construction system, right, everybody knows, it is a subcontract system. Even the laborers are subcontracted, right? You find different laborers working every day. And we are not assured of the quality of these laborers. And they move from building sites to building sites. So the only for us to protect ourselves is to ensure that we have enough documents, which is very, very clear, right, to explain even to the contractors what it should look like. Sometimes our contractors are also business people, right? They subcontract out to other people to do work. And the problem that we face on site is the coordination. And that's why I said it's very important for me to show you those slides, right? The responsibility of coordination on site is not the work that been left to a very, very young club of works, right? You have to be very, very proficient and understand the processes. And I think BIM can help us do that because it can actually tell you, it can model and show you exactly what the whole thing will look like, including clashes, right? So if we can determine that very, very early, right, the chances of mistakes on site will be much, much mitigated. So this is, so we have taken the initiative and doing the test and to show that this is what happened. Sometimes contractors don't believe us, so I think with this, it is a very important and very useful tool for us to tell the people in the industry how things should be. That is what I'm getting at. Does that answer your question?
Okay, Tan Sri, let me also pick up one other questions. What the industry expect from a fresh graduate?
Oh, yeah.
You have to be frank with me, Tan Sri, on this.
Okay. I have to be frank with you. First, the skills of communication. Right? Sometimes students, graduates who come out, they cannot communicate. If they speak English, it's broken English. If they write English, it's bad grammar. If they speak Malay, they cannot translate what they call technical jargons into the language. Right? Communication is a very, very important tool because for architects, your ability to sell your design is measured against the ability for you to communicate. So this is one. Secondly, right now, I think BIM is a very, very important subject in any university for architecture education. If they can come out proficient in API, proficient in dynamic script programming, right? I think they'll be much, much more what they call employable. Right? They may not have to be able to speak, but they can be able to program. Programming, I think now programming is also a quite important aspect in architecture design, because now you can actually determine the shape of the environment against whatever creativity that you have. Don't forget that the computers, the software, hardware, they're just tools. But at the end of the day, my first slide, right, saying that the creativity is something that the machines cannot do. It is still you, right? It is you who are the creative, who are the creator. Right? You are the innovator. You can come up with things which a machine cannot think. Right? So but with the machine, it can help you, right? If you cannot communicate verbally, it can communicate through your machine. Right? Whatever what they call program that you use. So this is the two, to me, the two aspects.
Thank you, Tan Sri. That is, I 100%, 110% agree with you on that point. Let me see whether we have more questions. Participant in WebEx rooms, anybody would like to ask question directly to Tan Sri? Please raise your hand. We will unmute you Bashira Muhammad Baha, please voice it out.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum Tan Sri. I'm Bashira from Segi University. So yeah, you did mention things about BEAM being the next forefront in architecture, which I think everyone would agree. But I think most of us are surviving. I wouldn't say surviving, but small company architects. We don't have much to actually dwell into this BIM. So what would be your advice for this medium scale? Because I think most of my students who went out after they graduated, they will definitely go to the medium-sized company first before they got the confidence to go to the big company like yours. So what would be the advice for you for this medium company to provide to the students and also for the students to provide to the industry?
This is a very, very important matter that you just brought up. You know, people like to see, big firms from overseas like BIG and Foster's and who are very, very well equipped, to do all kinds of animation or programming. It is unfortunate that in Malaysia, we have a very small number of architects and everybody wants to become, the boss on their own. If you look at this profile of the practice, the number of one-man shows, sole proprietor, is so huge. I think maybe it's about maybe 80-90% of it. So you can never grow big. You can never be able to. Hence, it scares the hell out of people who wants to engage you for major projects. Malaysia have a lot of major projects. They're not small projects, So this is becoming a chicken and egg thing. So I think maybe one way I would even encourage for a merger, small merger, and we also maybe urge the government to look at how projects could be done in such a way that we promote smaller firms to be to form a consortium of sorts, right? And handle this. That's one aspect. The other aspect, as far as the equipment and the software and hardware is concerned, I would like to see that, bodies like CIDV that has, the BEAM initiative, to have like what they call a clearinghouse, where firms can even engage, and outsource. And CIDB, who has the capacity to actually go, the full hog of BIM, right? If Industry 4.0 is talking about, greater good for the country in terms of technology and what have you, digitalization, you cannot depend on small SMEs to do it, I would consider, a one-man show. So practice is a small-scale industry. So we have to think big. So I think the only way to do that, you got to have a body like CIDB and with the help of PAM, with the help of LAM, right, to promote this. What's wrong with having a common library? I think Singapore has done it. Have a library, and all you have to do is to make sure that all the suppliers and the manufacturers, right, subscribe to this library. It's good for them anyway, right? So you just plug and play, and, from whatever, either library, which is a clearinghouse controlled by CIDB and LAM. I think that's probably a way forward if you want to realize. And then everybody have the chance, to be trained. then you can expand further in terms of research and development to with the universities. So we have to think out of the box in this case. You know, you cannot say, "Oh, sorry, I think the government must listen to this." You know, you can pass a message around from this. I think our DG on higher education maybe will take this up. It's a very important milestone. If you want to really be competitive, you want to be really take our professionals out to the world, we need help like this. Does that answer your question? Whoever it was.
Yeah, I think you have answered the question, Tan Sri. But if you are still okay, Tan Sri, with time, I would like to pose you a few more questions. Will that?
Yeah, I still have another half an hour. Yeah.
Okay, we have somebody raise hand, Mr. Mustafa, come on.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Also, fellow architects and also fellow academicians of architecture schools. Tan Sri, we in MPC, we are formulating a program because CIDB has actually accumulated a lot of levies all these years to the construction for every fee. So the only way that I can see forward is whatever the reserve that CIDB has built up is to use all the reserve, most of it, in order to buy BIM in bulk. That means to say that right now BIM is being sold as a singular entity. That means to say if one company or one firm buy 5, 6, 20. Now we need to spearhead if we can buy in 20 million pieces or 30 million pieces, that will actually bring down the cost, because right now is the cost that's the factor. It's not we don't have the talent, we have the talent. Once we have the cost, if I think the universities are going to use it, we need to have that cost down. Because I just like to tell you our neighbor, population of 260 million, they have signed a collaboration of a CIDB institute with 500 universities. So imagine the library that they have actually built up, and they already forwarded to all embassies of the world their BIM modelers throughout the world. That means to say that even though they have just started, but they have actually have the I call it the CV of all these BIM modelers in the world. We are still looking at us, even though Tan Sri said that our projects are big, but the BIM modelers is the one that actually going to make it happen, because all the works now in the world requires BIM modelers, not just architects. Architects, yes, but the BIM modelers is very, very important. And that's why I think Lembaga needs to promote all the graduate architects to take technologies as part of their second degree, because I think the world cannot survive with just one degree of architecture. You must have another, which is the technologies of architecture technologies. And this is where the specialization of BIM in many, many ways can help. And I think for the next future, or 2030, and I don't know why it must stop at 2030 when the world will actually go to carbon neutral at 2050. I remember Tan Sri spoke in 2050 during the PEP COP, the COP21, responsible architecture. 2050, the world will go neutral, where that means to say whatever you produce on site is actually whatever you produce the building there. So we have to teach students in that manner, because in my limited knowledge that I know, when we come out from the school of architecture, when I used to come out in 30 years ago, the lecturer tells me, you are actually factory settled as a green architect, as a technologist, as a leader, as a project manager. So I think we need to embark that knowledge that we are factory settled in that manner. There's no green architecture. When we came out of university, it's already green architecture. Unless somebody adulterated that word green architecture. So I think we need to embed that back into the education, that sometimes we need to learn the local technology. Also, we need to relearn back the kampung, the orang asli, the dinas lokai power. I think this is where also the local schools need to embark on that, which the other schools in the other countries are doing that to know the local betterment. I think that's my contribution for this foray from now, from whatever Tan Sri has presented. I think we need to actually ensure that the cost is kept to the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Mustafa Kamal. Tan Sri, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think
Opinion.
yeah,
Please.
I think what Mustafa has said is correct. We cannot do it alone. Definitely, myself, my firm, we cannot be doing it by ourselves. We need a lot of support, and of course, CIDB, you're right. They might be able, with the amount of funds that they've got and they've collected, and they should channel to develop this industry, with BIM, if we are serious about it. So, this our neighbor is very, very clever. He's got a network. I don't think we are short of networks. So we just need to have some facilitation, and maybe something which CIDB or the government can take it up.
Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. I have other questions from FB Live. I'm picking up question from FB Live. This is from Muhammad Faiz Zakaria. Let me read it for you. The scope of architect is becoming limited and stripped away the responsibility and profits of the architects due to the technology advancement and intimidation from quote-unquote experts in their field, especially within building and construction industry. My question is, should architect students taught to be specialized from schools?
There is no harm, to specialize. Even in the international scene, in Europe, for example, a Bachelor of Architecture alone is not enough. They are moving towards specialization, because you are right that the building industry has gone beyond what we used to, beyond Bauhaus, as you opened up your statement earlier. There's so many things that's involved in building now that it was never thought of in the past. Facade engineering, for example, right, is a very important aspect. People now are building, not just skyscrapers. They go to the heavens, right? And the technical and the technology that's required to build this massive and very, very high structures is enormous. How to defeat or to neutralize the effect of sways and things like that, not just on the structures, but also on the occupants. So these are specialized things. Even things like building maintenance. How are you going to clean those buildings, right? Facade, when they finish? It's just hanging gondolas alone is not sufficient. It would take the severe turbulence that you have, at 100 stories high. So these are specialist work. So I think maybe there's no harm if you finish your study and you go into this specialization. There's so many acoustics, macam-macam. So, indoor quality pun you need specialization. So it's very, very vast in terms of the scope that an architect can do. And I think nobody can. But for the main architect, he must understand this is a requirement. This is the effect, right? He cannot just design and walk away. Somebody has to take care of it. At the end of the completion, right? somebody has to maintain and manage this place. So you're not careful, you can be liable also. If the building is not maintained properly and it gets damaged and life got, lost, you can be liable. That's unfortunately the law.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. My problem now is, Tan Sri, so many questions coming in, and yet you have a limited time. But I saw the former president of Lembaga Architect Malaysia, Dato Sri Dr. Amir Hamzah, has been raising his hands repeatedly. So please, over to you, Dato.
Welcome, Dato.
You muted.
Please, Dato Amir, unmute. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. A very good afternoon to everybody. To my Sifu there, who's so serious looking, and to Tan Sri sir, moderator and president and the rest of the gang lah. Saya nak bawa this web conference into inline again lah. Thank you for all your explanation, Tan Sri, about work dan sebagainya. But if we come back to the title is Envisioning Architectural Education for Malaysia. Dengan apa yang DG cakap tadi, I would like, because I'm also part of the university, so I want to know what is your vision for architectural education? From what you have said, kan, what is being needed dan sebagainya, because I am time and again being questioned lah. Bila saya pergi kat universiti, dia tanya, what do you want? Macam question yang pertama tadi, Zahri tanya tu, what do the industry expect of the fresh graduate? Sebab saya dapati bahawa a lot of fresh graduate yang come back to the university bagi tahu kami bahawa dia tak boleh dapat kerja because their education tidak fulfill the industry's need. Kononnya lah. So what do you envisage that university ajar budak-budak ni lah in this IR 4.0 dan sebagainya? I try to educate them lah in this emerging technology dan sebagainya. And also with the threat of this new profession such as the technologies, architectural technologies lah. Now Tan Sri sendiri sebut facade engineering, you tak sebut facade architecture. So then there's a threat. And again, the splinter from the ID dan the landscape, architect punya kerja ni has been reduced to so small. So what do we teach the architecture student now? Just design, or everybody is saying about BIM. BIM, as you said just now, is only a tool sebenarnya. But to me, the creativity and innovation, I keep telling the student, is the most important thing and differentiate an architecture student and the rest. So, bila saya cakap we go back to basic, most young lecturers, most young lecturers say that dia kata, Dato' Amir, you are from the old school. We are in the new school, kan? We don't teach what you learn last time. So, saya punya basic, Ramli is there. Ramli, so, saya kata, architect needs to dream because of the intellectual property right. Macam Tan Sri kata lah, nobody will be able to steal Zaha Hadid's dream, kan? So, I keep telling the student, you must sleep. You must sleep in order for you to dream, and then you sketch out your dream. Jangan guna komputer. Nobody will be able to steal your sketches dan sebagainya. But sekarang, if you talk about BIM dah, so saya pun tak tahulah apa nak cakap. Because envisioning architectural education in the future. Boleh Tan Sri share your insight with us, please?
Yes, of course I can. You know, I for one, right, as I stated, even the first slide, creativity is the most important aspect of what an architect should be, right? So I have visited schools before also, right, and make comments not just here but also in Africa. And most important is that, to be able to communicate, right, through your sketches, to transfer whatever you visualize in your brain, in your mind, right, through your hands and fingers. These are the important tools for you to become an architect.
Hmm.
And I always encourage at least the first year, right? There shouldn't be any machines.
No computers.
No, it shouldn't be. Okay? They must develop this. It's a very important tool.
Like me, you're from the old school lah.
No, it's not. It's not old school. It is universal.
Fundamentals.
It's universal. It's a very fundamental. You know, to be able to create with your hands, right? There is a sensory perception within your own body that transfers your brain visualization to your fingers, and you sketch it out. This is what it is about, and this is why students who just use machine, right? And I've seen their design proportions are all wrong. Right? The proportions are all not right. They couldn't figure out. You must be able to gauge, you know, even at this age, at that first year level, you got to be able to visualize and guess, you know, dimensions.
Yes.
You should be able to tell whether the door is 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet, right? You should be able to visualize that. Sometimes I've seen kids in universities, even up to third and fourth year, right? Where they draw a toilet, it's the size of a room. They just could not have that sensitivity about scale.
It's a royal toilet.
You know, and no, I'm talking about toilet cubicles. You know, double C's. So this is something is wrong in the teaching somewhere. You know, very important for kids to understand scale and proportions, and that can only happen if they use their hands, right? And to translate. After that, after having done all those, you can use the machines to help you to communicate. I mean, you can parametric, you know, we have to use dynamic script programming in ISMA, right? It's a tool. You can do all kinds of, you know, shapes and strenuous forms, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's your hand that started it. So you know, we look at, when we look at graduate also, I like to see what is the ability to sketch. If not able to sketch, I think they're not going to be a good architect. If they will become good machine operator, unfortunately, you know.
So in envisioning the architecture education, you agree with me that first year student should not use computer at all. First year syllabus tak ada computer.
Yeah, I agree.
Boleh.
Simpan komputer.
Lecturer semua senyum je tu tengok. Lecturer kata budak-budak sekarang Tan Sri dia orang lebih pandai lagi. Dia form 5 tu dia sebelum dia keluar SPM tu dia dah guna komputer AutoCAD dah. So dia masuk universiti tu dia dah boleh buat AutoCAD. But then
extra lah. But after doing that, when they come to first year or even to going to the second year, you must be proficient in sketching and visualization.
Okay. Tan Sri on you. Okay, Tan Sri.
Yeah.
I'm going to take another question. This is going to be last question from this session. I do not want to take more of your time. There are a few more questions, but I will take that question into the next session of the question and answer session after the Dato, Illias, Salleh. But the last question for your session, Tan Sri, comes from the chairman of the Council of Heads of Architecture School, KOHAS, that is Architect Dr. Srazali Ariffin. Over to you, Dr. Sra.
Are you muted?
Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Panel, Tan Sri, and the rest of the participants. I have a very critical view about architecture after 50 years and after surviving with AR and teaching Tan Sri. Hopefully, you can give me some advice as an academic. I feel that the architecture is very saturated, and we feel even your generations have been very successful, and the current generations of an AR fail to impress the public that the liability of an architect is crucial. And because why I say this, because even at the renovations and some of the big projects, they are mingling around with the fees and so on. So they didn't see the liability. And in our SWOT analysis, I did raise this issue. And when come to lawyers and medical, they never question about the fees. So how do we bring back the levels of confidence with the public that we as an architect are very, very important, and our liability is what we call that in sampai ke mati lah, Tan Sri. Okay, so can you enlighten me on that? Thank you.
I think first of all, you are right, absolutely right, that the public at large do not actually appreciate, right, the work of an architect. Not many people understand what architecture is. Unlike in Europe, the architecture is part of society, so there are policies promulgated by government on the importance of architecture in France, Finland, all this, right? So people live knowingly that architects are very, very important. Here, unfortunately, that is not the case. First, they do not know exactly what you say correctly, what is the liability that the architect is carrying when they undertake any projects or they engage any projects. And the value that's been put to the architect is so small. So hence, it's a vicious cycle where you put such a small value, when you cheapen the value of the contribution of the profession, so you don't get a good result. You don't get good delivery. So when you don't get good delivery, right, the client or the developer will find alternative. They'll find alternative in engaging, project managers who specializes in management. So we don't, as a profession, I found that this is where we are so lacking. We are lacking to tell people we are of value. And I think this is why I think, the tools that have been developed, which is developed, from the experience of people overseas, is very important to tell the client agents and the client bodies, this is a very important aspect for your production. So as long as that is not recognized, you are forever going to be stuck in this. We are going to forever be stuck in the rut, and people will just not appreciate us, and they will just appreciate somebody from abroad who can come up with all kinds of incredible design, and then they will engage a local architect who's willing to sign off and at a very, very small fee. That's it, we get into this vicious cycle. So until and when we are united, and then we actually show that we are of value, then I think this problem will still persist. So the recognition must also be exhibited and manifested in whatever the government is doing, the GLCs, government projects, right? They must give that recognition. When having given that recognition, the onus is on the architects to make sure that they can deliver. Yang jadi masalah sekarang, the problem we have now, right? We give to consultants and they can't deliver. No? And we have government also, local authorities also complain to the board. And we have even clients complain to the board the inability of architects to deliver to what they've been engaged for. So you're talking about preparation for graduates. They must be fully appraised of the requirement. That's why I was willing to share all those things I've given you in the slides, right? Even my own, what they call private trade secret, what I just share with you. All this process, business process, is for the sake of the industry and of the, to be able to add value to yourself, to add value to your service. Kita jadi sekarang ni problem. I mean, from my own experience, sometimes our own people don't recognize our capability. How on earth are we able to go overseas and say, look, we are good, right? Whereas our neighbor, they promote the architects, with the government companies, go overseas, right? And they say, we are good because this is what we've done. So, it's a vicious cycle. Kita jadi serba salah. So I hope, I'm a bit vocal on this because I've seen so many, right? And I think maybe this is a platform. If you want to achieve the objective of Industry 4.0, right, we have to do this. We must work together, whether it's LAMS, IDB, ministries, GRC, we must work together and move forward. Look, Petronas is being recognized as a global company. They are recognized, they are respected, right? Why can't we? We are not short of good architecture, but only thing we are operating at a small scale, right? So we need everybody's cooperation here. Now, at the moment, quite frankly, we are not using the universities. We are not. There is, to me, there's a big divide between practitioners and universities. Right? Just imagine the wealth of talents that we have in the universities, the young minds. Young minds were eager and hungry, if you could harness that. I think maybe now one step forward is that for universities to joint venture with the private sector. Right? Because there's a lot that even the private sector have to learn from the universities.
Okay, thank you, Sri. Thank you, Tan Sri, for your thought, your opinions, for sharing wealth of your experience with all of us. You may see seems alone in this room. Actually, I'm not. I'm accompanied by 10 members of the staff and technician here.
Really?
So, Tan Sri, truly has been a great honor to be with you today. Thank you for spending your precious time with us. I'm sure everybody benefited significantly from what you have presented, as well as your response to the questions. We hope to meet you again some other times throughout our our research activities that will end somewhere in June next year.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'd like to apologize for whatever what I said, which might be offensive. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, and hope to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got to go now. Sorry, can't join you. Maybe I can join my handphone.
Yeah, you can always join us along the way to Putrajaya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seri.
Okay, viewers, participants, as of now we have, as I said earlier, constantly over 250 participants and viewers joining us. It's a good crowd despite the afternoon session. Now we move on to the next session, that is the presentation by the panelist number 2. Now is the time to introduce the second panel, that is Emeritus Professor Dato Architect Dr. Illias bin Salleh. As I did to Tan Sri Architect Isa, I will also cite selected and significant achievement of Dato Illias. Meanwhile, viewers may read his brief resume on the screen. Dato Dr. Ellias has served University Technology Malaysia since 1973 until 1999. Then later, he moved to University Utara Malaysia and served as Deputy Vice Chancellor there. After retirement, he continued to pursue his career in the academic. It seems that he's born as academician. So serving University Putra Malaysia in 23 to 2019 as professor in architecture. And later University Kebangsaan Malaysia in 2012 to 2016. And finally resided at International Islamic University Malaysia from 2016 to 22. The most recent post that he now occupied is the Vice Chancellor of Genovasi University College. A person who has vast experience in education, in architecture education, who also has been serving the practice, to balance between the academics and the practice. He has spent almost the entire of his career in the academia, serving the university of various capacity, especially on leadership and governance. So rightly, as we follow this resume, becoming the Vice Chancellor of Genovasi University College now is spot on. It is truly a privilege for us at this webinar to have him in this webinar. I'm sure the Honorable Emeritus Professor Dato Architect Dr. Illias Salleh is already available online on the other side. How are you, Dato? Unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Please proceed, Dato.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Syed Iskandar. I hope everybody still has energy, yeah. So, okay, yang berbahagia Presiden of Lembaga, Architect Zairul, and I see the ex-president also, Dato Amir, and Dr. Srazali, and others, colleagues, friends, and all participants. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the honor to participate in this webinar. So I hope what I'm going to share will somehow benefit the initiative that we are doing for the roadmap of architecture education in Malaysia. Okay, I will straight away share my screen. Sorry about this. Okay. Okay. I have to go back. Okay. When I was given this topic, technology competency in the built environment in the context of envisioning architecture education for Malaysia, I didn't know what to focus on. You know? So the subject matter seems to be very wide. But anyway, within a span of about 1 week, I managed to put something that I would like to share, and maybe we can discuss further. So, okay, I would like to go back to what Professor Dr. Syed was talking about, the background of the beginning of our architecture education. Of course, we started in the 50s as a technical college, and the college has transformed into UTM, what we know as UTM today. It was modeled around in the British two-tier system, 3+2 with a 1 year practical in between. And also, I would like to declare that I was a product of this system in the 60s, in the 69, in fact. And then with the intermediate RIBA, I proceeded for the second part in UK. So, and UTM was the first institution or university that started the local architecture degree in Malaysia. And one of the, among the first graduates, our former president of Lembaga, Architect Dato Nohaizi, and also Architect Libichu, and about 4 or 5 of them who graduated. And then, of course, this model has been adopted in all the other local schools of architecture until the present day. And as mentioned by Professor Syed, there are now at least 18 institutions offering architecture programs at different levels. Of course, in architecture studio, design studio becomes the focus of academic activity supported by related courses. Or in those days, we just call them subjects. Design, theory, history, technology, planning, urban design, landscape, etc. Management practice. And normally, local practitioners would come in to assist in the studio work and so on. And the teaching and learning methods have been largely face-to-face. That is what we have been very familiar with and comfortable with. And the introduction of CAD, as mentioned earlier by Seri, Esa, and other design and rendering softwares improve the quality of delivery and productivity. Subsequently, this was followed by more advanced computational design tools that can do more advanced work, for instance, performance of buildings, environment, and so on, and animation. And this was followed by virtual reality and augmented reality that can give our clients to experience the space or the design spaces. And of course, eventually the submission of building plans become digital as a normal practice. And then early this year, we were hit by this tsunami, I would call it a tsunami, and a COVID-19 pandemic that somehow had forced the teaching and learning in all schools of architecture, in fact, in all schools in Malaysia throughout the world, even to migrate to online, whether they are ready or not. And that was the only choice, whether they do it immediately or there was a delay. In the case, I was in the UIA at the time, and there was a delay of about, I think, about 2 months and so on before we embark on online. Okay, the shift of paradigm was accelerated by COVID-19, affected every sector of life and industry. And we are now in the transition period of disruption and changing nature of work as well as lifestyle. And initially, this was influenced by the introduction of Industry 4, that is especially in digitalization and digital transformation. And this also affected jobs and employment in the market, where there was a lot of employment as well, and this somehow made the upskilling, reskilling a necessity for the unemployed. In order for Malaysians to remain employable and to improve their standard of living, they must learn new skills, increase their productivity, and be more adaptable to the changing environment, working environment. It is this shift in mindset towards continuous, lifelong, and life-wide learning that will drive our talent and workforce to prepare for the future of work. And at the same time, we are having automation, artificial intelligence, and digital technology that is in our life, but then nothing can replace human mind, as mentioned by Tan Sri and also the rest of the commentators. Those are just tools. Okay, I would like to look at the topic in the two keywords that has been given to as a title. First is technology. I would like to confine this term into into these three main topics. The first one is architectural technology, where it will involve materials, processes, products, machines, and tools. And secondly, it involves educational technology. This is very important because this involves the delivery, whether it is on campus, off campus, online, hybrid, MOCC, or the latest addition is micro-credential. I see micro-credential as a big opportunity for us to address a lot of the concerns, how to go about teaching architecture and as well as other subjects. And this is something that we can discuss further. It's a big topic, it's a new, and it is already approved by the MQA. And the third one is, of course, pedagogy. Pedagogy is how we organize the teaching. Of course, it starts with Bloom's taxonomy, teaching and learning methods, and of course, eventually we have to assess the students. Secondly, we look at the word competency or the term competency. To me, competency has been widely defined as the knowledge, the skill, the attitudes, and the behavior, as well as the application that one has about a certain subject. Some people argue it as mastery instead of competency. Competency to them is more on hands skill, whereas mastery has got something to do with mental aspect. Okay, let's look at the basic basis of educational approach. That is the Bloom's taxonomy. It started in 1956 as a triangle. These are the various thinking skill, from the lowest thinking skill to the highest, which is knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And there has been development, and the Bloom taxonomy for the 21st century has been turned into this remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and eventually creating. This has been the development, the changes. And Along the way, people are not happy about the pyramid. Learning in life is dynamic, very synergistic, interrelated, and deeply connected to creation. And therefore, it's never a static pyramid. And thus, we have the current one, which is in the Bloom's digital taxonomy. And what you have here is that the arrow pointing down, that is the lower order of thinking skill, LOTS, and the upper one is the higher order of thinking skill. And these are the words that will describe how to achieve those goals or the learning outcome at the various levels. So this is the digital version of Bloom's taxonomy. And now let's have a look at the architectural technology courses, or in those days, we just call them subjects, just to understand what it involves. And this is my own what we call this focus on technology. I will just narrow it down to subjects or courses that I deem as technology. So these are building materials, building structure, building construction, services, fire safety, building environment, building economics or life cycle analysis. And then we have the understanding of planning and understanding of urban design as well as landscape. These are the traditional names of these courses. But of course, we have to look at this in terms of our current environment. And then what are the teaching learning tools or media? Yeah? So we can look at it as had been discussed earlier, debated earlier about the necessity for sketches, or I just call it architectural graphics, architectural drawing and rendering, technical and working drawings, and physical model. These are more or less the conventional. And then later on, the computer brought about the computer-aided design and drafting, and then the more advanced computational design tools, programming, and what has been mentioned by Tan Sri, BIM. That is the whole system. As a whole system, they bring together all these tools and management tools as well. And then that is topped by virtual and augmented reality, and also by 3D printing. These are the technologies that we should consider in terms of delivery of the subjects or courses. And all this will require competencies. We are talking about just now, BIM. We have, in the case what was discussed earlier, it was the cost aspect of the system. Yeah? It's too expensive. The small firms cannot afford it. Only the big firms can afford it. But we do have people who can manage the system. But this system consists of small components. It's impossible to have somebody who can do everything, but there are small components, some simulations, some something else, and so these are the aspects of technology that we should more or less focus in relation to the subject or the courses that we try to bring to the students to understand in the process of their design. Yeah, the building alone, as well as the environment, which is the planning, landscape, etc., urban design. So architectural technology courses must be guided by some of ideals or what we know as a best practice. And one of them, of course, is the Sustainable Development Goals or Agenda 30. And there are 17 of these. And out of these, I just choose about 10 of them, which are directly can be related to architecture or buildings. And then we are also guided by the necessity to be smart. We have the Malaysia Smart City Framework, smart economy, living environment, people, government mobility, and so on. Of course, Putrajaya has got its own smart city framework. Iskandar also has Penang, and so on. But this is by KPT that has been introduced, I think, last year. And then we have the guidance for the green building. The subject must look at this criteria for good practice to get the building certified as whatever level that they want to. Yeah? And of course, the third aspect is the sustainability, going beyond sustainability, sustainable development, which in this case, I just take this terminology as sustainable circularity. Basically, it's based on circular economy, which actually has got 3 principles. One of them, the first one is about waste and resources, designing out waste and pollution. Waste becomes a resource, and it will go on the idea is we do not want to increase the intake of resource in terms of to get things done, products done. Secondly, is to keep materials and product in use, recycle, reuse, remanufacture, etc. And the thirdly is to regenerate natural system. This is where regenerative development and regenerative design comes in. So there are 6 circularity action areas that we can use in order to approach circular economy, design in circular economy. One is to regenerate renewable energy and materials, reclaim, etc., return the recovered biological resources. Secondly is to share, sometimes we call this sharing economy, share asset, which we are already doing. Most of the we are already doing, so reuse and so on. And optimize, remove waste in production, leverage big data, automation, so on. Thirdly, remanufacture products. This is part of the recycle. Virtualize, we are also doing a lot of this already. Online shopping, especially, and in our present situation, this is very much so. And of course, exchanges, apply new technologies, choose new product and services, so on, and also using multimodal transport. Okay, this is what is happening now. We are in a transition from linear to circular economy. In the linear economy, we are just going like a railway track. We're just taking our resource, making things and dumping as waste and pollution. And we are moving to the circular economy. That is recycling. There are 2 products. One is the biological, and the other one is the technical nutrients. So we are already in this, and this is something that we have to take note of. Europe is very active in this, UK, Europe, Japan, and so on. Okay, regenerative design and development, we are guided by this diagram, which somehow can encompasses the whole concept of from this degenerative environment towards regenerative environment. If you look at the line along here, this is indiscriminate resource use. Secondly, efficient resource use. We try to be efficient. Thirdly, we try to conserve. And the end, and we affiliate with nature. We become sustainable. But we want to go beyond that. We mimic nature, restore nature, tend to nature, and we want to be part of nature, be nature. And this is the scale from organism, building, ecological subsystem to the site, neighborhood, community, watersheds, biome and region, and to the ideal situation, and which is actually the regenerative design and regenerative development. So we are in a changing paradigm. What has been mentioned earlier, the most prominent influence at the moment is the Industry 4. And Industry 4 consists of 9 items. Simulation, virtual and augmented reality, Internet of Things, additive manufacturing, horizontal and vertical integration, big data analysis, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and autonomous robots. This, I think we have to be informed, and the students also have to know about these influences. And education strategy, these are changing as well, as mentioned earlier. We have now borderless learning. We had the opportunity to have borderless learning. Foreign students need not worry about visa. If they want to study in our university, they can do it online. And then also we have cross-culture and cross-border learning. I see some universities are already doing studio work, but in together with another university in another country, in another region, so they can, with one studio work, they can compare the approaches depending upon the context, cultural context, regional context. This is already happening, cross-culture and learning, cross-boundary. And thirdly, we were talking about, of course, with that, we have the diversity in inputs to the project. Understanding is wider and can exchange information and so on. And then collaboration for resources. For instance, it was mentioned earlier, library in Singapore and so on. So we can do the same thing between institutions, cross-institutions collaboration, and also learning from industry, as mentioned by Tan Sri. Maybe universities should joint venture with industry or practices for certain purpose. And of course, we can now afford to have global platform for our exhibitions. These are the strategies that is open to as our option. And of course, thirdly, it's more important for the teachers or lecturers, how we approach the teaching and learning. So this is a combination of pedagogy and technology. We are shifting now from lecturer or the teacher-centered learning to student-centered learning. The onus is on the student now, and we can have blended learning. Blended learning means we use various media, not only just lecture, videos, visit, and so on, but we can also have face-to-face as well as online. And we can have synchronous, asynchronous, where synchronous means the lecturer is with the student at the same time, whereas asynchronous, the materials are available at any time. So this learning can be at any time. And then we have a flipped classroom. Flipped classroom means we reverse the process. Normally, we give a lecture to a class of students, and then the students will go away and individually will attempt the assignment on their own. They have to analyze and so on and on their own. But when in flipped classroom, the reverse is done, where the materials will be studied by the student individually, and they will come back to discuss the topic in groups. And that way they can have a bigger understanding on the topics and so on. And of course, multimedia and social media are used in the delivery of these courses. And we can have virtual design studio. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, you can take the opportunity to link up with even a foreign university. And then at the same time, the students can be learning about another culture in terms of another site, but having the same project objective. And lastly is the micro-credential, which I mentioned earlier. This is the new addition to our educational system. And this is basically based on competency learning, competency-based learning. And I think this is where if we can see the work market actually appreciate more competency than paper qualification. So to have this competency, students can opt for small competency-based learning, and then with that they can afford to have to be able to work in some projects or in some companies with that competency. So we maybe we'll go into this later again. Okay, this I'm just showing a micro credential which has been done in USM, and they are, I think, among the most active in promoting this system, micro credential, which actually enable lifelong learning as well life-wide learning. What are micro credential? Micro credential are a digital form of certification, also known as digital badges, indicating demonstrated competency in a specific skill or set of skill and acquisition of specific knowledge. So this can be computing, can be part of the animation, can be part of BIM components or other aspects that need that special competency. And this can also be done for learning just in time or just enough or just for me, personalized. But of course, USM now is converting all the existing program into this alternative. So student has a choice. He can choose to do a 4-year program that is based on time, or he can choose this micro-credential where he can take his time. If he's smart, he can do it faster. He can get the qualifications faster. If he wants to take it slowly for lifelong learning, he can take at his own leisure at any time, anywhere. So this is the advantage of micro-credential. Okay, now we go to competencies, and this is what the UNESCO has listed: 5 competencies for achieving sustainable development goals. First is systems thinking. So by systems thinking, okay, we'll go through it. And the second is anticipatory, and the third is normative, fourth is strategic, and fifth one is interpersonal competencies. System thinking competency involves the whole system, understanding of the whole system. For instance, to me, BIM is a whole system. No, right? It takes from the beginning right to when the project is completed. So it's a whole system. There are component system that make up this BIM. And even I think circular economy is also talking about the whole system. You are not talking just about the waste. You're just talking about other aspects as well in life that affect human being. Second is anticipatory competency. This entails the ability to collect, analyze, evaluate, and to have picture of the future related sustainability. And especially in design, we want the design to be future-proof. Excuse me. And to be used during multiple cycles. Of course, this is talking about circular economy, involving longitudinal value propositions and longitudinal business models. So this is what I have been also trying to encourage students during my teaching days, especially those doing master's thesis. They should be designing for the future, not the current situation, because they will be practicing in 5 or 10 years' time. And they should be aware what is happening and what are expected for those period in the future. Okay, the next one is normative competency. This is the ability to collectively map, specify, apply, reconcile, negotiate sustainability values, principles, goals, and also to consider life cycle assessment, risk analysis, as well as others. And this involves estimating the environmental impact over multiple use cycles. And designers, when aiming to extend product lifetime, need to be able to assess the environmental consequences of the design interventions. Strategic competency, this is related to concurrently develop circular business models and product design. This reflects a need to think about the viability as well, as mentioned by Tan Sri, and the scalability of the solution. Excuse me. And lastly, this interpersonal competency, being able to work in groups. I think projects need group work, needs different skills and competencies. No one knows everything, but everyone knows something that he can contribute to the project or to the team. And also we are talking about a lot about collaboration, and Dato Seri, Professor Mustafa mentioned earlier on about collaboration. He expects collaboration, and I think he was mentioning about triple high something. I forgot the word. And this is collaboration between university, industry, and government, I suppose, and to have the entire value chain or value network reflecting the need to identify and to form partnerships, not only two, but many partners. Okay, those are about my the things that I would share. I would like to share, and these are some of my last thoughts. First is digitalization and digital digital migration. Is here to stay. Secondly, circular economy has set in. We have been doing some of this, but we have to to embrace this further. To embrace this further, to understand this further. We are doing a lot about waste, waste to energy, and so on. Thirdly, technology is fast advancing. So we have to be adaptable, to be agile, to adapt to technology. And the work culture and lifestyle are changing. We have work from home and so on. And competencies are preferred over qualifications by the employers. They do not look so much. To get qualification, you have to spend a number of years. You have to spend so much money in order to get just a qualification. In the meantime, you have to borrow and so on. But for competencies, you can do it in small portions where the competencies will enable the student to have income, maybe side income or part-time income or even full-time income, and they can take their own time to have the qualifications, eventual qualifications of what we want to be. And of course, we have to embrace this now. Lifelong and life-wide learning is made possible now, I think, especially with the micro-credential system that has been introduced just this year, I think, by the ministry. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emeritus Professor Dato Dr. Illias bin Salleh, Dato Architect Dr. Illias bin Salleh. We previously have heard from Tan Sri Isa, more a view from the practice looking into the education. Now we have Dato Dr. Illias views from from the academic. In fact, some among us already have expressed interest in the content of your speech, Dato. They already request to have a copy of your slides.
Yeah, I have given to the secretariat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much for that. It's certainly very appealing to curricular designer. I'm sure academics at the university look forward to look further details into your presentation. It was indeed a very thoughtful speech. I'm sure it will contribute significantly to the research that we are carrying out for the Halatuju Pendidikan Senibina Negara.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dato, we have questions ready for you, Dato. But before we start, I'll let you have your drink first.
Thank you. I have it. Like Tan Sri, after not used to giving a presentation, my throat gets dry.
Okay.
Yes.
If you are ready, I would like to begin with the first question. This is from FB Live. Let me read it for you. In other Southeast Asia countries, more startups are emerging rapidly due to the forces of change to adopt innovation and technology transforming the traditional industry, including architecture. It is inevitable that technology will impact employment, but on the good side, job scope will become more broader and niche or specialized. This could be a catalyst, especially the young architects, to spark the industry. How can the industry, especially land in this case, do to address and encourage this trend, especially to the young generation?
Okay, I think the question is addressed to LAM. Is it? Lembaga Arkitek, eh? Is that true, Syed?
No,
Prof?
the question is open. Actually,
Okay.
both of you and Tan Sri Ishak can respond to it.
Yeah, okay. Arkitek Zairul, I think. This has got to do with, to me, I think policy,
Yeah.
policy issue has got to come from the authority governing the practice, and others can propose, I suppose.
Please, Mr. President, would you like to respond? Dia tak bisa cakap.
Hello?
Ada Architect Zairul, you are muted. Please unmute.
Somebody need to help, just like when I was in situation just now. I couldn't do it.
Please unmute.
Somebody need, secretariat maybe.
Architect Zairul, please unmute. Okay, probably I'll get back to you later if we have.
Or even our ex-president, Dato Seri Ahmed.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I will proceed with other
Yeah.
question. I'll come back to the question later. Okay, this to Dato Architect Illias.
Okay.
Do you think that the duration of study for a degree student would be, referring to Bachelor Science, LAMPA 1, for a degree student would be better as a 4-year course instead of 3-year course, as most university now having?
Okay, it depends on the new Halatuju. To me, we can reorganize all those courses, in relation to what is relevant now. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, we have the Industry 4.0, we have circular economy, and we have other needs that is influencing the practice and the environment. So maybe this it need not be time, because as we say, this is we are in the era where we have a choice. If you want to go the full scale 3 years, 4 years, or even lesser than that, if we can master or we can have the competencies that is necessary for the level of education that is expected for that particular qualification. But I think the future education will give emphasis more on competencies, various competencies that will build up the individual capacity to become a professional or whatever there is the necessary in the industry. I think it is very much open, like what USM now is doing. They have the normal, let's say 3 or 4 years program, but the student can also opt, because they are translating all those subjects into smaller portions. They can do it faster, or they can even do it at their own time, leisure time. And at the same time, maybe they can earn living and they do not have to borrow and so on. So these are the aspects that it should be, as I mentioned, life-wide. Lifelong is time. Life-wide is options. So there are options now.
Okay, thank you, Dato. The next question, we have so many questions, Dato Illias. This is again coming from FB Live, Shafizal Shahrudin. Let me read it for you. From my perspective, the community of practice and even our institutional practice have been quite fragmented in their understanding and approach towards the social cultural implication of digital transformation. My question, are we going to reclaim/retain our long lost identity as a longer be as a longer be single-handedly championed by the architects? Hence, no, sorry. Are we going to reclaim/retain our long lost identity as a natural leader/aid of the project? Or can we just accept the fact that the project values can no longer be single-handedly championed by the architects? Hence, the need of promoting and legitimizing the hybridity of the architectural profession. The answer to this concern, the answer to this concern may inform our educational providers how to actually infuse new digital delivery processes into the existing architecture education system. What do you make of it, Dato? Elias?
Yeah, okay. Digitalization and identity. I think these are even heritage is something that is promoted, encouraged in our sustainable development goals. So we must ensure that we still have the heritage, but we have to use the new tools, in order to promote this. I think I do agree with that. Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to Webex. There are few hands. I can see few hands. Which one? Can I have Architect Mustafa Kamal? Oh no. Okay. I also saw Professor Abdul Razak Sapian.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Dato Dr. Ellias, thank you very much for the enlightening presentation about the future of architecture education. I think I would like to, how should I say, share my thoughts after going to almost all the universities in Malaysia for the crit session, either in second year, third year, fourth year, or fifth year, as well as also giving lectures on the master's thesis for architecture. Okay, going back a few years ago, we are still in this the dichotomy of either to have a full 5 year or you have a 3+2 with one practical year in between. But having here both yourself and also Tan Sri Esa, and also looking at the world view of architecture now, I think architecture has transcended into a very important aspect of human sustainability in the world. And even COP have also accepted that architects are able to save the world if they're given the chance to do so. And I think it has also proven to be so. So maybe in our sense, I don't know, it's a discussion between you and also the question is, maybe we need to relook back that architecture is part of the arts. And I remember my old school in Auckland University, yes, they teach the school of architecture is 3+2, but they have now grouped those architecture as a creative arts faculty, where they incorporated music, TV production, the arts, architecture, interior design, urban design, town planning into one faculty. So there are architecture students who doesn't want to become a practicing architect, but they want to contribute to the built environment. And they are good in writing, they are good in video making, they are good in production, they are good in shall I say, news broadcasting. So we need these people to explain to the world the importance of architecture, the work of an architect, the way architects are actually put to the test, being in libel terms. So in my opinion, the schools now with this open through webinar online, they can get world-class speakers without to pay any cost to actually be in our own classroom. I remember having Peter Eisenman beside me in the same room, talking and listening whatever he taught me in school, but I couldn't understand at those years. But now I can understand Peter Eisman's work because he explained to me the way that he explains in English terms. So to me now, we need to instill and create this school architecture that is open platform, studio-based, correct? It must be studio-based, but it has to transcend from year 1 to year 3 and interactive. That means to say that there are cross criticization between final year and first year or second year, so the students learn. And some students really can know to design. So I think we need to open up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dato, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I agree with that view. Not all students would like to end up doing architecture. They are students, it depending on their interests and, of course, as I mentioned earlier, their competencies. With competencies they can get jobs. As early as maybe as long as the competency is recognized by industry. But to be an architect, it will take time. They can develop these competencies, mindsets, etc. to become eventually an architect. But along the way, they can be doing something else. They can be doing media. They can design. They have the tools or the means and the innovativeness to design even a doorknob or to be industry designer, fashion designer or whatever. Because they have the basic thing is design, design skill. And then they can add up with other computational skills, and so on. Yes, I think Dato Ahmad is
the next in line is Professor Razak Sapian. Please, Professor Razak, make it short and sweet.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Illias and all the members. I think I do agree with both presentations by Tan Sri and also by Prof. Illias. Okay, being Prof. Illias academician and Tan Sri practitioner, I think both are actually miss one point over there, in my opinion. Okay, in which I think Institute of Higher Learning only provide graduate as a product. Actually producing graduate as also human. Okay, and I can't see in both presentations. For example, we are talking about humanizing education. We are talking about education with values. And we are talking also about graduate that is become problem solver. And also we are talking about holistic student and graduates. So all these elements I think have been left out in both presentations. And also both presentations talking about IR 4.0, but none of both of you are touching about society 5.0. So we are always talking, the industry are always talking that graduate from the universities ready to do drawing, ready to draw windows, to do BIM, and to many things. But you are forgetting about the societies that require touch from the architects and touch from the graduates. Thank you very much.
I agree with I agree with Prof. Razak, because I did not touch all those because I confined myself only to I think only to the technological aspects. I agree with him. Yeah, it needs another platform, I think, to discuss that alone. Because there are so many things to discuss. Very wide.
Okay, thank you, Dato. We're going to pick up one question from Ati Rosemary. Is she there? Ati Rosemary.
I am.
Okay, please.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Ellias. I've got a question.
Yeah.
Basically, my question is, because you spoke about technology and it's a very a great and a needed by all school. However, with the fast technology rapidly changing, how can Malaysia architectural schools be abreast with international schools and the industrial demands with the given or current economy that we are in, with the budget constraints and tight budget operational funds available, especially for public schools, to procure gadgets, equipments, hardwares, softwares, and such for teaching and learning. What do you think about this?
I agree with you. I think in the end it comes to the bottom line, how much it will cost, Especially I'm in a private institution now, and I really realize this means a lot. No? So in the private sector, the bottom line is the cost. So in the public sector, this is where I think the government, the ministry, has to come up with solutions. But in the meantime, I think what we need to do is to adapt ourselves to whatever we have. If we cannot afford it, there's no way that we can do it. So that is as simple as that. Or the other way is for collaboration, as mentioned by Tan Sri earlier. Maybe among the institutions, you have a common agreement to share. Sharing economy, you share as a part of the circular economy objective. Share facilities, share expertise. We can even have, with the micro-credential system coming in, we can have courses which are common, can be taken by all students, but developed together by all schools, and then monitored by lecturers in each institution. So that will save time, will save cost. I think this is an opportunity that I think micro-credential offer, and I think that's one of the possibilities, I think. I may be wrong. Thank you.
Okay, viewers and participants, we are running out of time. I know that many of you have shown your hands and wanting to ask questions, but I've been moderating all throughout, but I have to be cruel towards the end. So I'm going to take up one last question. This is from architect Woi Lok Kwang from FB Live. This is to Dato Elias. Thank you for all the presentation. My experience is that most major universities, which I have the privilege to involve in, have a very good standards as LAM sets a baseline standard. At the same time, it seems to discourage differentiation and diversities among universities. I just would like to seek feedback from the speakers if LAM should take a more open approach in their guidelines. It's okay to be critical to LAM at this juncture, Dato.
My simple answer is yes. I think we should open up for differentiation. There is no one solution to any problem. There are many approaches, and as long as these approaches are based on evidence or quality control, I think that would be, to me, would be a possibility. We should open up rather than having uniform system. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Emeritus Professor Dato Architect Dr. Ellias Salleh, for your time. It's been a privilege for us to listen from you directly. I know that you are very busy. I also would like to share with the viewers and participants out there that this webinar is the first webinar in the series that we plan throughout the research. The second one will be held in mid-2021, in mid-February 2021. I will let you know who are the presenter slightly later. Keep it suspense. So, before that, I would like to invite the esteemed President of Lembaga Architect Malaysia for the closing remarks. Over to you, Mr. President. Please unmute. Zairul.
Is that, do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, good.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you again, Mr. Moderator, Professor Dr. Syed, Iskandar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all. Well, we have come to the end of the session today. It has been truly a great session today. I have humbly received many compliments of you, the speakers, and the many forum participants. Before I conclude, and I wish to once again reiterate that embracing the new era of education direction, methodology, philosophies will be key to success and widespread adoption, and ensure that the education fraternity stays in step with advancement in productivity and efficiency compared to the other sectors. With greater promotion and awareness effort, we are optimistic about the future uptake and the implementation of a new direction for education. We are certain that the architectural education adoption of the new direction will strengthen the development of teaching resources to produce efficient, productive, and professional academics. At the same time, by outlining the core recommendation of the direction of architecture education, we'll be able to cover the needs of architecture graduates, academic staff, curriculum architecture, and infrastructure development that can strengthen the growth of teaching and learning architecture for the long term. Before I end, I wish to extend our thanks to our organizing team, which also include the Ministry of Higher Education, HPS and UTM team, COHAS, all our speakers, especially Tan Sri, Dato Sri, and Professor, our moderator, without whom this forum wouldn't have been possible. And especially to you, the attendees, participants. This is your forum and your home ground, and you make this lively and interactive as you did. Thank you all for your enthusiasm and presence today, which truly show your support and commitment in making today a success event. Thank you again. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. President. We're coming to an end. I promise to you to reveal the names of the presenter or speaker or panelists for the next webinar series in mid-February 2021. The first one is Riva Gold Medal for Architecture Education, Professor Ashraf Salama from Strathclyde University, Glasgow, Scotland. And the second is Professor Dr. Chris Tweed from Welsh School of Architecture, United Kingdom. And we also have Professor Dato Tan Sri Zulkifli, the Rector of University Islam Antarabangsa. He probably will respond to the question by Professor Razak Safian on society during that session. It has been great and it's been good. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your patience. I know that you have lots of views and opinions to express, but we can cater so much within the limited time that we have. We thank Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Architect Haji Esa bin Mohamed, and we also thank Emeritus Professor Dato Architect Dr. Ellias bin Salleh. Both have been great, and we certainly capture the significant points and notes for our research project. Thank you very much, both of you. With that, I thank you all. Stay safe, keep your distance, wash your hands, stay away from crowded spaces. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. I can now reveal you my team.
Yes, thank you all. It's been great. I thought it was 10. It's less than.
Kamera ni boleh jauh sikit. Lagi. Tak apa.
Okay, thank you for the hard work.
Thanks everybody.